Welcome to the Honest to Goodness podcast,
where we promise to be more than honest
and point to his goodness. Yeah, we're back again.
Again, here we are.
Did you miss us? I do miss
I
you.
missed you.
I do. I miss you when I'm not with you.
Well, I missed you in that last episode as well.
Yeah, you missed me in the last episode, and I wasn't mad because today is just one of those days.
Yeah, tell us about it.
It's gross. Today is gross.
It's gross out.
That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel kind of gross, not like sick though. I'm just not feeling it today. So Jesus, come and be the voice. As Tessa and I just got done praying before this because,
Yeah, you walked in today and you said, I'm just not feeling it.
Can I not be in? Can I not be in the
And
podcast?
sometimes you just have those days, you know, where you're just like, you wake up. You said you walked into your closet and you immediately were angry.
Yes, I have more clothes. I sent Nicole a picture and I said, I've bought maybe 2 items of clothing in the last year and this is why. And I sent her a picture of my closet and she goes, you have about 10 times the amount of clothes that I do. And I go,
you have Evelyn that shares
it wasn't
clothes.
Evelyn's clothes were not included in
Oh,
I just don't purge. I have a problem. I don't take the time to get rid of the things I don't wear because
it takes a lot of time.
Yeah,
actually.
I have hoarder mentality or scarcity mentality, they call it, where you think, okay, I don't want to be wasteful. My husband can throw away a shirt or something that I think might bless somebody else, but he just knows he's not going to donate it. And I just see a pile of clothes in the trash. And I'm like, why? Wait, no, that's so
Nathaniel.
wrong. It goes against everything that I struggle with. And so anyway, but yeah, I walked into this closet of a surplus of clothing and I've gained a little weight this winter. And I've already worn the 2 pairs of jeans that me and all the other episodes. And I'm like,
This is real. Let me just tell you, it is a labor of love to get you guys these episodes.
Yeah, I know. You and Nicole, I love how beautiful you two are on the inside and the outside, but it's also a little annoying how well put together you two appear all the time.
I feel like you're always put together.
Okay, that's great. I mean, but that's not how we feel about ourselves. I have expectations of myself, and it's easy to judge myself. So,
what
grace upon
expectations would you say you have of yourself?
Yeah, like I just, you set an expectation for how you want to appear to people or how you want to be perceived. And first impressions are everything, right? And then when you're getting in front of a camera, and I know we have a lot of people who don't actually watch this, but it is on YouTube.
Yeah.
And when you get in front of a camera, you're kind of like, okay, so how do I want to show up today?
Right.
And
there's a whole nother pressure.
Yeah.
That's like added.
Yeah. And so if you're not tuning in, you can avoid YouTube for this one.
Yeah.
For me. But if you are on YouTube, this is how I pretty much look generally, like little makeup.
She's gorgeous.
Super lazy hair and like a mom shirt. So that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm at today. And I'm, some people might look at us and make judgments or feel bad about themselves or have already turned this off because, we all have this scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
That we each have, personally, like that we weigh ourselves against.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I don't show up like this, then I'm not enough.
Yeah.
If I don't show up like that, or we weigh ourselves against other people too. Like, well, I'm doing a little better than her because I at least wash my face today.
Which I didn't do that today. So you are doing better than me right now. In fact, this is yesterday's mascara, I believe. And we do that to other people too. So that's a great segue into what we decided to talk about today, which is expectations
in relationships.
Yeah. And so.
And should we have them?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be talking about.
And my is not an answer to that question, but but that is what we decided on today. So should we? What do you think? Let's go into that.
So this is expectations in relationships is a topic that the Lord has, really been teaching me a lot about lately. It's like, when you have themes that just keep popping up in your life and you're like, okay, this theme keeps coming back up. And it's like you turn on a podcast or you turn on a TV show or you turn on, I don't even know, you're talking with a friend and this topic keeps coming back up or this theme keeps coming back up. And that's really what has been happening for me surrounding this topic of expectations in relationships. And I think that also applies to expectations in relationships with yourself and in relationship with God. Yeah. Because I do truly believe that the expectations that we have of ourselves are oftentimes the expectations that we have of others, which is also sort of the expectations that we have of God. Mm-hmm. And I think, so kind of going deep here, I've been really listening a lot to, and I had you listen to a clip before we started this, but Paul Young, and he is the author, it's really William Paul Young. He's the author of The Shack. And he talks a lot about expectations in relationships and how whenever he says that basically it's like this. Expectations is like drawing a line in the sand for somebody. And anytime you draw a line in the sand for somebody and they don't meet that expectations, they immediately fail, right? And we do this all the time. I gave you the example of like, I struggle with my husband whenever it's Christmas time. My husband's love language is not gift giving. He is not very good at it. It's not a strong suit of his. And I've learned that over the years, but I love receiving gifts. And so what he has defaulted to do is say, hey, Tessa, like, what do you want for Christmas? We're adults, right? We can literally buy our own Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to buy me a gift, but I still want to unwrap a gift on Christmas morning.
And you want the kids to see that
yes.
gift giving.
Yes. Yeah. And so in the past, he has given me a gift, and if it's not to my liking, this is, guys, okay, I am not painting myself in a very good light. I'll just say, this is my selfishness, okay? When he has given me a gift that I didn't approve, it's usually returned. And it's because of my expectations, right, of what I think he should get me. And so, but there has been, so now he's defaulted into like, just send me your list.
Yeah.
Like, link to the thing that you want. And I'm always very happy when I do that. But I gave you guys the example of like, has there been a time in your life when you've been unexpectedly been given a gift that you didn't ask for, nor did you expect, and it was exactly what you wanted? And how did it make you feel?
Yeah.
And like, it's an overwhelming experience. Like, that is a true gift, right? So Paul Young says that when we do not have expectations of people, but we have expectancy, then everything is a gift.
Yes.
So when we take away expectations of what people should be doing, what we think other people should be doing, everything is a gift.
Yeah.
But how do you not have expectations?
How do you not have expectations? Yeah. When you were speaking, there were two things that went through my mind. I'll touch on the second one right now. My husband has purchased me flowers. We've been married almost 22 years, like tons of times. Mm-hmm. But when I think about it, like all of the times that the flowers came on my birthday or my anniversary, I haven't like hung on to. I know they exist because those were special occasions. But there was one time I was at my photography studio and flowers showed up along with a gift, another gift, like a piece of jewelry. And it was the card literally said, just because. And so, I'm thinking, okay, I have a terrible memory. Why does that one instance stand out to me? And it's for the very reason that you just expressed. There were no expectations. It caught me off guard, and it made me feel so loved and so valued, because there was no reason that should have occurred outside of the fact that he went to the effort to do that. And then the other thing that jumped out at me as you were speaking was when you said, we draw a line in the sand, right? And I thought of that biblical depiction of the moment that in the Bible that Jesus actually draws a line in the sand. And for context, in this moment, there is a woman who has been dragged out of a scandalous situation with a man who is not her husband. Yep. And the penalty for such actions were stoning. And so she was dragged out of the place where this was occurring and dragged in front of Jesus. And everyone demanded that she be stoned to death and shamed. And Jesus draws a line in the sand. And he says to everyone there ready to basically kill her is the one without sin,
cast the first
stone, right? And then nobody could do that, right? And except for one person. And it was the one person who actually can meet every expectation that we have, and it's Jesus. But what he says in that moment is, I do not condemn you. Yeah. They have not condemned you, nor will I. Go home and sin no more, And so that makes me think of what we do to people, what we do to ourselves. That one story shows that no one can meet the standard. Yeah. No one can meet the standard except for the Lord himself. And even then we'd tell the Lord that he hasn't met our standard too. Yeah. And so in your relational journey that you touched on in episode 1, you said that you're learning about the kind of love that the Father has for you. And you've had some instances with different people in your life right now that you realized that they've had expectations that you didn't meet for them and that they haven't met for you. And it's just kind of exploded in your life. And then you realized what if I loved them like the Father loves me? What if I love my husband? What if I love Guy from a place that is modeled through the Father's love? Or what if I love my children that way? And that's also so interesting to me because the standards that we set are not full of grace for people. No. They're not from a love or an expectation like God has for us and that Jesus has modeled for us. And in fact, I don't typically play Bible roulette. I think last season you touched on sometimes you do, and it's super effective.
I did it a couple weeks ago. It was very effective.
Haven't opened this in a while, so Lord, just show me. And I wasn't playing Bible roulette, but I opened my Bible before this episode, and won't he do it? The very first scripture that it opened up was Matthew 7. And the subtitle in Matthew 7 is "Do not judge others." And Jesus says, "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged."
And I think that you can replace that. I think you could probably replace that word judgment with expectations. Yeah. So read it with that word.
Do not have expectations of others, and they will not have expectations of you. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in having expectations is the standard by which others will have expectations of you.
So true.
Yeah.
Right? And it's goes back to that when you stop having expectations of others, everything is a gift. Yeah. Right? And I feel I'm in this season right now where the Lord is showing me that I not only, we talk about having expectations of ourselves and how that really creates how you have expectations of others. And I would say that I'm somebody that's really critical on myself. So therefore, I can be rather critical of other people on what they should or should not be doing, right?
Yeah.
And Paul Young says, going back to Paul, he says that whenever you have expectations like that, you are always going to be upset. People are always going to fail you. You set them up for failure whenever you have an expectation, because you're basically you're holding these expectations over somebody, knowing they're not going to meet your expectation, and then they fail and they don't, right? And then you start this whole process of being like angry or upset or whatever, and that's when it's a cyclical process. And so I would love to like talk, because I know that you and we came from bigger families. I would love to talk about expectations in family.
Okay.
And how we all, we both came from, I would say, really good families. And yet there's still expectations that we have, right? And there's expectations that we have of one another.
Yeah.
There's expectations that we have for our parents. There's expectations that we have for our siblings. And at what point do you recognize that sometimes these expectations aren't healthy?
Right.
And I need to let go.
Right.
And how do you do that?
Yeah, I think like the first tangible example that came to mind is like when you get married and you leave the house, like the expectations of what holidays look like, or birthdays, or how you physically are expected to show up, what you're supposed to do, what are your obligations as a family member any longer, and then graduating now into the role of I have a married child. Like, do I have expectations now of them, of my son and my daughter-in-law? And the answer, if to be honest, on the Honest to Goodness podcast, is sadly, yes, I do. And I'm trying to let that go. Yeah. And you and I talked about, like, what are some practical ways if we're all like inherently doing this, we do it without thinking, but we know it's a problem. Like, how do you deal with that moving forward? Or what are practical ways and communicating in a healthy way? Communicating your heart, but also like trying to listen at the same time to what somebody else is saying. And a lot of times you're actually not going to agree. Yeah. But you also have to respect one another. And I think I'm there with a few areas with family. And then I've been released in other areas too, where it's just kind of surprising, where the Lord is in his goodness and in his own time softened hearts, and people have laid down expectations, and you want to model that too and so grace is always like the answer, isn't it?
In communication.
In communication. and we talked about that too. Like, Jesus always answered a question, but if he didn't want to dive into details, he didn't get wordy with things, or he'd say like, you will eventually like know this, but like right now I'm doing this, or this is not the time. And like, if you're heated, maybe that's not the right time. But communication sometimes, though, like for you right now, I know that you've navigated some of these difficult dynamics, and you've had to really force some communication, and you've been forced into communication with people, and it was probably really uncomfortable.
It was super uncomfortable. I was just thinking as you're talking, like communication. So it's funny because I was a communications major.
So was I.
So was Rebecca. And I often think about, that wasn't what I went into college with originally, but how comical it is, because I would say that I'm probably the most communicative of my whole family. I'm one of 4 girls, and we all have our passions and our giftings, but I would say I'm more of the words person, sort of and it's both a blessing and a curse, because it's like, I feel like I've always been the one to kind of have to say the hard things when nobody else wants to. But I've also looked back at my life and I've realized that the Lord has used all of those moments to train me up, because there's not a lot of people that know how to have open communication, but have it with grace and love infused into it. And I do feel like that is part of what he is wanting to instill in me and teach me, because reconciliation is so important. And especially in families, especially in friendships, but you have to be willing to have the hard conversation and say, hey, these were my expectations. This is what I desire. This is what I want. And you have to be able to have that that open dialogue with somebody and give them the space to process through it.
Yeah.
And then be okay with what they say back. And it might be hurtful, but at the same time, it's like, you're at least having a conversation where most people don't. And so I kind of feel like that's my role in a lot of relationships is, I say the things that not a lot of people that a lot of people won't say, you know? But because I think relational connection is so important to me and authentic connection is so important to me. But, I have learned, especially in this season, that I have so many expectations. And I feel like it's important to note, there's bad expectations, right? Where you there's selfish motive and things like that. But then there are, I feel like, quote unquote, good expectations where you hope and you desire for a relationship, whether that's with a parent, whether that's with a sibling, and they're not reciprocating or whatever. So there's good expectations, but I really am learning that we can't have really any expectations. We can't hold anybody, we can't control what anybody else does.
Nope, nobody.
Right? And so it says in that verse, if we don't have, it says judgment, but if we don't have expectation of others, then we're not going to be hurt.
Right.
When they don't do what we want them to do.
Right.
So we can only control ourselves, and we can only listen to the Father and speak and move and communicate as he leads and guides. But we also have to be in communication with him about those things. Does that make sense? So yeah.
Yeah. I always ask the Lord for his perspective on pretty much everything, but
That's good.
People,
good practice.
I'm like, can you please give me your perspective of this person, who's really difficult right now?
Yeah.
And he used to give me, when I started praying that prayer, and it still happens to this day. So I started praying it years ago. He started showing me maybe I shouldn't say they're difficult people, but people who weren't meeting my expectations, right? He started showing me them in a childlike way, visualize them as a 2-year-old child. And that is how I see them, Rebecca. They're my little one, my tender one. They're ignorant in so many ways. Show them patience like a father or a mother would. Show them grace, because they can't see their tantrum in the same way you're seeing it or whatever, and
It's so good.
not that I'm better than them, but if we all looked at mankind with the tenderness of a loving father or mother, it would be different, I think, and
Oh yeah.
yeah. And you don't have expectations of babies or
No,
toddlers.
no.
Literally, in one of our episodes, we had baby Gates crying in the background, right? And so, but was anyone angry at baby Gates? No, we have no expectations of a baby, of a child. They don't know. They just are out there expressing their needs or their moods. And so, and some people, we are people who should be responsible. Don't get me wrong. And sometimes, don't get us wrong in this, in saying you shouldn't hold someone responsible for their actions.
Or yourself responsible.
Yeah. Or yourself. Yeah, exactly. And that's where the communication comes into key, communication with grace. I always suggest partnering anything that you're trying to approach that's difficult first in prayer.
Yeah.
And asking the Lord to, lead the way.
Yes.
I'll go behind you. Can you walk through this territory in front of me, and I'll go behind you? And so, I 100% agree. I think let's talk about marriage, actually. Let's talk about marriage
Here we
for
go.
a second, because I think for those that are married, like when you're thinking about, and you touched on like Christmas time with Guy, but like expectations of how someone should, if you're in a disagreement or a fight, are you, so for Nate and I, Nate is the one who does not want, can't just like go to sleep easily while we're like
Fighting.
upset.
Yeah.
And for me, I really want to just shut down and like go to sleep and pretend like everything's okay, or just wait until morning. Right. And sometimes like in the 21 and a half years we've been married, we're both like, this is just going to get worse. So let's get some rest.
Yeah.
You know, that has happened. But earlier in our marriage, like that's not the case. And sometimes he's right. Like we need to discuss it, like, or just hash it out in the hard way. But that's just not me. Like, and my expectations are always like, can you be gentle when you communicate this? Can we like do it this way? Like I have a way that I think that all disagreements should be resolved in my head. And it's not aggressive. It's full of just like hugs.
And rainbows and
Even
butterflies.
though I could be the crazy one starting the fight and yelling. But like, and that's just not like how he is. So with you and Guy, do you guys like fight in the same way? Or I
would say that we're opposite of you and Nate. So
Okay.
we would like, I would be the one that wouldn't be able to go to sleep angry, and I would want to get a reaction out of him because he kind of shuts down during fights. Like he doesn't process as quickly as I do.
Yeah.
Like he just can't. And I didn't understand that for the longest time. I did not understand how like it wasn't computing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean it was, but it was just slower processor.
Yeah.
And so now we will go to sleep with an unresolved conflict, but it is like we know that we're going to pick it up. And like you said, like you guys have learned, we have it's usually not productive when we try to hash it out in one setting because there's a lot of emotions involved and a lot of reactions, like specifically from me. Like I'm the more reactive one. I'm the more passionate one. I'm the one that, sometimes calls names and like says things that I shouldn't. And he just kind of gets quiet. And so I've had to shift my expectations of our communication to be, okay, this isn't going to be a quick fix. This isn't going to be a resolved in a night. I may not even get the answer that I want. I might not even get the reaction that I expect that I should get.
Yeah.
And I would say that like, we've been married for almost 13 years. And I would say like my husband, I have seen especially in this year, him grow in his voice. And I do attribute that to him growing in leadership. Like my husband has been, for the first really 10 years of our marriage, we were just trying to survive, like with having 4 kids and starting our business and all the things that come with that, just like trying to figure it out and always like there just being a constant exhaustion. And so we didn't really have extra time or extra energy for outside things. Right.
Yeah.
And so this year, this is kind of a tangent, but this year he has put himself in more leadership positions. He is coaching, and he is a part of a men's group, and he is a youth leader within our youth ministry at our church. And I would say like, even though it's stretching for him and he doesn't always want to be doing all the things he's doing because it again is stretching, for his time too, it has helped him to be able to voice things and see things differently. Yeah. And it's called him up. And I don't know really where I was going with that, but basically I feel like he has been equipped more in being able to communicate. And I've like, even this week he sent me a text and I was like, I asked him to do something for me. And I don't remember what it was. There's something stupid, had something to do with like taxes, I think. And the way he responded was like so sweet and so kind. I didn't expect it. what I expected was for him to be short with me.
Yeah. Because
And-
no one loves taxes. It's like a bad word.
And I also, exactly. And I'm also like, that's not my forte. And I feel like I ask him for a lot of help with lots of things. And usually it's like a short, like, yeah, got it. But it was like this really sweet, like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. You know, I've got it covered. I've got it covered and I'll handle it 10-4, you know, kind of, it was something like that. And I didn't expect it. And I was like, I read and reread the text and I was like, I wasn't anything like super crazy, but I was like, I responded back to him. And I think this was like the prompting of the Holy Spirit, and just said, thank you so much for responding in the way that you responded.
Yeah.
That was so sweet and so kind. And it made me feel like less of a burden.
Yeah.
And so just like even simple things like that,
Yeah.
like make me excited.
Yeah.
Because, I see that we're growing in our communication with one another. And I think going back to it, like the more you communicate, I don't think you can over communicate.
Right.
I really don't. So I think like with the more you communicate about your feelings, your thoughts, you know, even like the things that you never want to tell anybody. Like the other day I told Guy that I'm really embarrassed to drive my minivan. He's like, why? And I'm like, he's like, we're going to drive that thing to the ground. And I'm like, no, but I know it's silly, but like I struggle with materialism and like wanting to like look presentable and like status. Like that's all really important to me. I know that it's not important to the Lord, but it's like, and so I struggle with that. And just like even voicing that to him,
Yeah.
like being
Yeah.
open about silly
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
they can understand. Oh, maybe that's why she was so triggered whenever we brought up X, Y, and Z, you know, or
Yeah.
maybe that's why she got angry when we talked about.
Yeah.
So it just kind of gives them a better glimpse into your brain.
Yeah. Well, I love that you drive a minivan, because that's one of the few relatable things to the
like-
mess that is our dented pickup truck and, and beeping Maxima. So please keep the minivan. But I think all of this is really good. I think the lesson here is to pause and ask the Lord, like, Lord, where do I have expectations?
Yes, that's good.
Like, where do I have expectations? Because I know I can't measure up to my own expectations of others. So help me lay them down and like, help me see people the way you see them. Give me your grace to
Yes.
pour out upon others. And it's so freeing. Like,
To let
it's
it
so
go.
freeing. Now, in our flesh, it's not always possible. Like, it's like God is not like a magic genie. Like, he might have more for you in that. And he might have to pull back a couple onion layers to get to the heart of
Couple, probably few, or a
to
lot
get the
more than that.
yeah, the heart of some bigger problems where your expectations are just kind of the surface thing and all
Yeah.
that. But I don't know. I think the more you pursue the Lord, the more he reveals himself to you. He says that in scripture. And the more he reveals himself to you, the more you want to draw close to him and be like him. And actually for me, like when I journal to the Lord almost every day, I don't even know if this is right or wrong, but I want to make him proud. And I don't know if that's a pride problem for me or if that's just the desire of like a childlike heart.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I'm navigating that right now. Like, actually, this is what I wrote this morning. I want more of you in my life, not for the sense of a climb, but as a response.
Yeah.
Like, I want you in my life. I want my love for you to not be a climb, but a response of your love for me. Like
That's
the
so good.
Father's love that you described from 1 Corinthians chapter 13 last week. So in the same way, if we love like that, then our expectations of ourselves and others and God himself should begin to fall away,
Yeah.
you know?
And I'll just say in closing that like, another Paul Young like picture that was really good, and I think will kind of tie this up nicely, is that like he shares openly about his relationship with his father and how up until his father was 80 years old, like he was always being let down by his dad, you know, and the father walked him through a just a simple little like the picture of how, you know, like, hey, your father has never lived up to these expectations and he's 80 years old. Why do you think that he's going to change anytime soon? And so why don't you let me pick up those pieces that your father can't, and let me give you what you want from your father. And he said that it was when he let go, he said something broke in him whenever the Lord spoke that over him. But then he said, and when I let go of my father as being my father, I saw him as a human for the first time. And when we look at people in their humanity, like you said, as we were setting all of this up and there were so many technical difficulties and we were forgetting things. And I said, what is the Lord trying to tell us? Are we not supposed to shoot this episode? And you said, no, I think it's just our humanity. Like, we just forget things. Yeah. And so it's like, what if we could look at people through the lens of like, everybody is human and everybody makes mistakes and nobody's perfect. And that's grace, right? Like that's truly the message of grace. Yeah. And so he said, like, when I started looking at my father as a human being, I no longer looked at him with the expectation of like him being my father and giving me what I need. And I looked to my heavenly Father to be all those things for me. Yeah. So,
so if you insist on having expectations, let the one who can meet them be the one who meets them. Yeah.
I think we should end it there. Yeah. That was good.
Cool. We sound smart. I like that. Thank you, Lord.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. Yeah. And we hope that you will join us again next week.
Yeah. Over and out.
Over and out.